Hello there, my name's Scott and today I'm going to be doing a review on the Anyvape Sega tank which I received from ukecigstore.com. Before I start though, I must point out I did receive it free of charge for the purpose of conducting a review, but my opinion of the product remains true, honest and accurate as always. Okay, let's go straight ahead and show you what's in the box. Okay, so the Anyvape Sega tank will come in a presentation box, and inside the box you will of course get the actual Sega tank, and this will come pre-installed with a 0.5 ohm Aspire Atlantis atomizer head. You also get a spare Pyrex tank, a rebuildable atomizer head, so if you like to make up your own coils you can do so, and you also get a bag containing some Japanese cotton, a miniature screwdriver and a couple of pre-built coils. Now interestingly though, it didn't come with an instruction manual, which is not too much of a big deal if you've got a bit of experience with these sort of things, but from a beginner's point of view, you know, it's a bit of an oversight not to include one. Okay, so the Anyvape Sega tank is another one of those relatively low cost budget friendly clearamizers that's been designed for cloud chasing made simple, and in that sense it does work really well, nice and easy to use, performs great. So regardless of whether you're a complete beginner or a seasoned vapor, if you're looking for a nice little straightforward setup that's easy to use and performs well, then it could be something of interest to you. It's 22mm in diameter, and from the top edge there to the bottom edge there, I measure it at around 52mm in length. Mainly made out of stainless steel, and I've not had any issues at all with the build quality. Everything screws together really nice and smoothly. No sharp edges or rough edges or burrs, there's no leaks or anything like that. But I will say though that when I first got it, it was quite disappointing because I took it out of the box and noticed straight away that it was in a very grubby condition. You know, the threads were sort of pretty much black. The inside of the tank just didn't look exactly sort of clean, let's put it that way. So I did feel as I needed to give it a proper scrub behind the ears before I actually started to use it. So a little bit of extra QC wouldn't go amiss. In terms of aesthetics, personally, I think it's a bit of a pig. It's just not my cup of tea at all. There's nothing about it that really appeals to me. I don't like these sort of black banding here and here. You can get different colours. This is obviously the black version. I absolutely hate the sort of 1980s retro font. And I'm also not keen on the sort of sharp and pointy cutaway windows. Now imagine this same atomizer, completely stainless steel, a nice bit of elegant engraving there, nice rounded off windows, and I think it would completely transform the overall look and look far more appealing. So in terms of aesthetics, just not my cup of tea, unfortunately. Okay, so what I'll do now is give you a bit of a guided tour, show you how I've been getting it all set up, and go and have a nice vape. On the base you're going to find your usual 510 threaded connection, and right in the middle you have a copper centre pin. Just below that you have a choice of 4 different air hole sizes. Not too sure what those sizes are unfortunately, as I can't find that information, but to make things easier it's small, medium, large and extra large. Now these are all selectable via the airflow control ring, so you just need to grab hold of that and give it a spin. At the moment I've got the largest one selected, but if I give that a spin you can see it's going to close that one off and open up the one next to it. This does click nice and firmly into position as well, so you haven't got to worry about any sort of making any accidental changes if you're going to carry around in your pocket. And you do have a visual indicator here as well, but it's so minute it's probably not worth having in the first place. If you look just above my fingernail there, you can see a tiny little diamond, and then on this part here you do have some Roman numerals 1, 2, 3 and 4 to let you know what size you've selected. But you know, if you've got bad eyesight, you've got absolutely no chance of being able to see that at all. And then going around the base you do have these 4 cutouts to obviously allow for airflow. The tank is made out of Pyrex, and it's a relatively thick tank, so it should be nice and strong, and as it is Pyrex it's going to be perfectly fine with all your known tank cracking e-liquids. The tank itself will slide over this metal cage, and the cage does have these 4 cutout windows to allow you to see how much juice you got left. And I have mentioned it previously, but personally I think the windows look far nicer if they've just sort of squared off or at least rounded off rather than being pointy. And the tank itself will hold around 4.5ml of e-liquid. Now let's get to the absolute best part of the Sega tank, and that is to do with this top cap. Now I'm not referring to the black band because like I said, I'm not a big fan of that, and I'm definitely not referring to the rather tragic retro style 1980s font because I can't stand that either. The best part is the fact that it unscrews, as you can see here, and allows you to fill up the tank from the top. So this means you don't have to take the atomizer off the mod to fill it up with e-liquid. You don't have to flip it upside down to fill it up. You know, just get your juice, squat it in the top there, put the top cap back on, and that's it, you can carry on vaping. You know, absolutely brilliant. And why isn't every other sub tank, you know, using this design? Because it's just so simple and so much better. And you also get included this stainless steel mouthpiece. It's quite a nice mouthpiece to use. I prefer acrylic or sort of Teflon drip tips, but if you do want to change it over, just need to pull that out, make your own one in the top there, and all the ones that I try fit in there nice and snug. Okay, so what I've just done here is I've broken down the Sega tank into these sort of main components, and that is going to be the base section with the 510 threaded connection and the adjustable airflow control. You then have the 0.5 ohm Aspire Atlantis atomizer head, and this comes pre-installed in the Sega tank when you get it. And if you've ever used an Atlantis before, you know these work really well, produce plenty of flavour and tons of vapour. And they also include a rebuildable atomizer head, and we'll go through that in a little bit more detail in a second. You then have the main body, which is made up of the internal stainless steel cage and the external Pyrex tank. And as you can see, the Pyrex is quite thick, so it should be nice and strong. Now there is a slight issue here. If you look carefully, I've not got any top caps on. The tank is actually empty at the moment, but nothing's dripping out, even though I still appear to have plenty of juice in there. And this is because the juice seems to be getting trapped between the Pyrex and the stainless steel cage. If you're going to be using the same flavour all day long, every day, it's not going to be an issue. But if you're going to be switching flavours on a regular basis, eventually you will get some flavour crossover, which is obviously not particularly what you want. And the only way to actually get rid of that last bit of juice is by actually sliding the whole tank off, rinse it under the tap, and then put it back on again, which is obviously a little bit long-winded and generally just a pain in the arse. You then have the top cap, which for me personally is the best part of the Sega tank because it just makes filling up with e-liquid really nice and simple. Simply unscrew it, squirt your juice in, screw it back on, and that's it, you can start vaping. So, you know, a really good design and one that I'd like to see on all the other sub tanks as well. And then finally you have the included stainless steel mouthpiece. Right, so I'm just going to backtrack a little bit now and show you the rebuildable atomizer head. And this comes pre-installed with a 0.5 ohm coil, and you also get 2 spare coils in the bag as well. Now it's going to act basically like a miniature K-fan. You have 2 juice channels on either side. Juice enters those channels, goes up, touches the cotton then soaks up the e-liquid and then feeds it to the coil. It's made up of 2 parts, and if you unscrew this part here, it's going to reveal the atomizer deck. And as you can see, you just have 2 little Phillips head screws for your positive and negative terminals. And when it comes to setup, nice and easy. All you need to do is attach your coil, one end of the wire to one terminal, the other end of the wire to the other terminal. And you can just grab hold of a bit of the cotton, rip a piece off and feed it through the centre. And you don't need it to be sort of too loose, but you don't need it to be too tight either. Somewhere right in between is perfect. And then what I do is I replace the body, then grab hold of a pair of scissors and just cut it off so it's right on the end now. And then very carefully with a screwdriver, just very, very gently place the cotton so it's just touching the atomizer deck. You don't want to sort of force it down there. You want it so it's just sort of barely touching. And that way I find I get no wicking problems whatsoever. And it seems to be able to keep up even at quite high wattages as well. And then once you have installed the coil and the cotton, just make sure you give it a good soaking with e-liquid to obviously prime it. And that's it, you're all good to go. So to assemble the Sega tank, you just need to grab hold of the atomizer head you're going to be using and screw that into the base. Make sure it's down there nice and tight. Then you can grab hold of the tank and screw that over the top. And again, make sure that's down nice and tight. Once the tank is in place, you can grab hold of your e-liquid and fill it up. And obviously when you do this, just avoid pouring it down the central hole there, just do it down either side. And because it is top filled, you can fill it all the way up to the top, which is always nice. And then once the tank has been filled up with e-liquid, you can grab hold of the top cap and screw that on. And again, just make sure this is screwed all the way down to the bottom, nice and tight. And then once that's on there, you can just finish it off by grabbing hold of the drip tip and whacking that in the top. Okay, so that is the Anyvape Sega tank. Let's go ahead, see what the vape's like. Okay, so that was the Anyvape Sega tank, and what I'll do now is go ahead and show in action. So I'm going to be using it on a K-Box, which is a sort of variable wattage mod. It's currently set to 25 watts. I'm using some homebrew DIY lemon meringue pie flavoured e-liquid. It's sort of roughly 6 milligram strength. And as far as I can remember, it's mixed up at 80% VG and 20% PG. And I'm also going to be using the Rebuildable Atomizer head rather than the Aspire Atlantis head, and the coil resistance is still reading 0.5 ohms. Okay, so this is the Anyvape Sega tank. And as you can see, vapour-wise, getting plenty of vapour out of it. Like I always say though, just bear in mind that the amount of vapour you're going to be getting will come down to your own personal setup with regards to the resistance of the coil, the air hole size you've chosen to use, the type of e-liquid, the wattage, the voltage. All those things do play a very big part in the vapour production, but nevertheless, with this setup here, getting plenty of vapour. And you know, flavour as well. You know, I already love all these sort of like the Chinese tanks at the moment. You've got the Kanga sub tank, the Aspire Atlantis. Was it the Smock something I reviewed a couple of weeks ago? And you've got this one here, which is of course the Anyvape Sega tank. I can remember it then. And I really like them. I think they all perform excellent with regards to vapour production and flavour. And you know, I've got no complaints in that department whatsoever. Now, I did have a few little sort of negatives with regards to the Sega tank, and I'll talk about that in the close-up shots, and we'll sort of go over that again, but sort of very briefly. Okay, so the first one is the aesthetics. It's not really my cup of tea. I think it's got the potential to look so much nicer as well. Not keen on these sort of coloured bandings, but I think I can actually live with that if it didn't have that really awful font on there. Now, I'm a person who's really into my fonts, and I can't stand that one. It's just, you can get things that are retro and look cool, but you get things that go beyond retro and start looking a little bit naff. And that just looks like a font straight out of 1986. I don't think it does any sort of favours to the Sega tank at all. And that combined with the sort of sharp, pointy cutaway windows just makes it look a little bit naff. Now, imagine if this was all stainless steel and just a nice sort of elegant Sega tank engraved into the top there. It look absolutely fantastic, or at least so much better than that, especially if they got rid of those sort of pointy windows. Now, that's just my personal opinion. When it comes to aesthetics, who really gives a toss what I've got to say? Because you know, somebody else can look at it and think, oh, it looks absolutely fantastic. You know, so take that criticism with a pinch of salt. Next slight negative was to do with the markings to let you know what air hole size you've chosen. I can't even see that, and I've got good eyesight as well, despite getting on a bit now. But I have still got you know, relatively good eyesight. And all you got is a tiny little sort of, well, it's not even a diamond, it's actually half a diamond in there. It looks like it's cut off actually. And then just below that you have some Roman numerals, but they're very small and they're very faint as well. So if you've got sort of bad eyesight, you've got absolutely no way of being able to actually tell what air hole size you've chosen. You would have to take off and physically look at the bottom to see what one you've selected. So if they could come up with a way of making those a little bit more visible, a little bit more sort of easier to see, and obviously that'd be better. The other slight negative was that I do find that it's very hard to get all the juice out of the tank. Even when you rinse it out underneath the tap, you can leave it sort of running underneath the tap for a minute or two, and then when you empty out the water, you can still see that there's coloured liquid in there, which means there's obviously still, you know, e-liquid in there basically, rather than just sort of plain water on its own. And it just gets trapped between the glass and the actual sort of metal cage, which is really strange. I don't understand why it doesn't come out. It just doesn't make sense. You can actually sort of tilt it up and down and see it moving up and down. So, you know, if you're going to be using just the same flavour all day long, every day, then it's not going to be a problem because you're not going to get any sort of cross-contamination of flavour. But if you do want to get one of these and change flavours every 5 minutes, eventually, you know, all those flavours are going to sort of mix together slightly. So that could be an issue for some people. Not too sure what I can do to actually fix that, but like I said, you know, it's quite a strange one. And the other sort of criticism I got is that when I received it, it was in a rather sort of grubby condition. Now, normally, when I get anything, I'll just sort of take it straight out the box or out the jiffy bag,
fill it up with e-liquid and start vaping. You know, I'm sort of quite lapsy-daisical when it comes to things like that. But with this one, I took it out and thought, oh no, I don't fancy that. You know, so I did sort of give it a proper good rinse under the tap, and I got some paper towels out and cleaned off all the grime. Now, I have been thinking about that, and I'm just wondering if whether maybe I got a sort of a pre-market version, because it didn't come with the instruction manual and it's a little bit on the grubby side. So it does sort of make me think, well, you know, maybe this is one of those ones where it's not actually for sale yet, and it was like a pre-sale version. Because I have had that in the past as well, but then I've been told, you know, this is like an early version or prototype, just let us know what your thoughts are, sort of thing. And there was no mention about that, so it could be the case. So hopefully, you know, if you did buy one of these, because I think it is a relatively new atomizer, and I have had it for quite a while. Again, that's what makes me think maybe it's like sort of a pre-market version. But, you know, hopefully if you did get one, then it will come with an instruction manual, and it will be clean as well, which is obviously probably the more important part. Now, with the regards to the instruction manual, if you've ever used any of these sort of things before, you know, they are very, very simple and straightforward. But from a complete beginner's perspective, because I'm sure some complete beginners will go for something like this, you know, it would be nice if you could have some sort of visual representation to say, right, I need to screw that into there, that's how I fill it up, and then I just need to screw it on, and I can start vaping. If you're a complete beginner, you might be looking at it thinking, you know, what the hell do I do? But, you know, those are the negatives. You know, I was quite critical about the aesthetics, but again, like I said, you know, who really gives a toss what I've got to say when it comes to the aesthetics. In terms of performance though, you know, chucks out plenty of vapor, no issues there whatsoever, getting tons of flavour out of it as well, just a really nice vape. The airflow control does work really well, but you know, you do sort of struggle to actually see what you've changed it to. But you know, in my case anyway, I'll just leave it on the most sort of wide open setting, and I've not really had any sort of need to change it. You know, I do these or use these sort of type of things with a lower nicotine strength liquid to try and get like loads of vapor and loads of flavour, and that essentially does the job really well. I would say though that it's not an overly airy draw, even in the most sort of wide open setting. Though you do still feel that little bit of resistance there. But you know, I can't complain about the vapor production in the slightest, and that's with the Rebuildable atomizer head, and that does work really well. I just find that if you know, just whack a bit of coil through your coil and just have it so it's sort of just touching the deck. Don't sort of squash it down in there too much, but so it's just about touching the deck. And you know, I very rarely, if ever, you know, get any sort of wicking problems and whatever. Maybe once in a blue moon I have to sort of give it a bit of an extra hard suck just so you can get the little air bubbles going out of there. But nine times out of 10, or even more than that to be quite honest, you know, every time you take a drag you do see a little air bubble coming out, which lets you know that juice has gone in, and obviously it's going to get up to the coil and prevent any sort of nasty dry hits. So the actual little rebuildable atomizer section does work really well. But the absolute best part about the Anyvape Sega tank is the fact that you can just unscrew the top. It does take quite a few turns to unscrew, but you can eventually unscrew the top. Take your bottle. I've not got any. Oh, I've got some e-liquid here, as it goes, and you can just go squirt, fill the tank up with juice, and then screw it back on again without having to take it off your mod, turn it upside down, and all that other bollocks. You know, so for me, that's the absolute best part about this tank. It just makes it so easy to refill, and you know, quite why all the other sort of sub tanks out there haven't got the same or similar design, I really don't know. So this is definitely the way forward in tank design, or top filling tank design. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the other tanks. I love me Aspire Atlantis, I love me Mikanga sub tank as well. But you know, it is a pain in the arse having to sort of unscrew your atomizer, turn it upside down, remove the base, then fill it up with juice, then sort of screw back in. And also you can't sort of quite get it fill up as well either. Whereas with this one, just take off the top, you can fill it right up to the top as well, screw it back on. You don't even got to take it off your mod. No, absolutely fantastic. Just a very, very nice vape, and very easy to use as well. The only sort of main gripe is the font. Get rid of that font, and I think the pointy shaped windows, and I think my view on the aesthetics, even with the bands, would probably be far greatly improved. Anyway, you know, if you do fancy trying one of these out for yourself, go along to ukecigstore.com. Thank you very much for watching. Also come along and visit the website at e-cigreviews.com. That's e-cig-reviews.com. Cheers guys, happy vaping. See you later.